Beyond the glitz and glamour of downtown Manama,
we're gonna hang out with these protesters for a little bit.
we venture into the dark side of Bahrain, a side the government tried to prevent us from seeing. Tear gas is a regular occurrence here, suffocating the boys' chants. We smelled it ourselves.
What is it? What is it?
My eyes are burning. It feels like I shot a lemon into my eyes, and you can feel it in your throat right now. It's hard to breathe.
We're just a short drive from the United States 5th Fleet Naval Base.
So this is the tear gas that they've been using?
This is it. It hits 3 pieces of tear gas comes from here. And
These are them?
No, this is another thing, either for the rubber bullet or for the tear gas, a different type of tear gas.
Human rights advocates like Nabil Rajab say everyday security forces have also been shooting into neighborhoods with birdshot. He says striking unarmed civilians.
People spray painted the names of the martyrs on the walls, but then it's been covered up with this white paint by the government. I mean, it's everywhere.
He said already I removed around 40 from my body in the hospital.
This is birdshot. He says that the police have been using this to shoot them. They're just little pellets that get in the body. But look what something that small can do. You see where he has them all over?
They shoot it from very close distance. That's why it's been killing people. And this one, you can, with one shot, you can hit 20, 30 people at once.
Right here, you can feel where some of the pellets are still in his body.
Still in his body because he's too scared to return to the hospital after the military took it over last month.
So he got out of the hospital bed and ran away.
Yeah, because he was afraid.
He'd rather try to remove the pellets, one by one with a needle, than go back. Doctors and human rights organizations accuse security forces of using hospitals to identify, capture, and then torture protesters.
Oh, you brought me tea. Thank you. Thank you so much. Shukran. He said he took a razor blade on his own and cut the bullets out of his leg because he was too scared to go to the hospital. Because he says that the riot police came in and beat him while he was in his hospital bed. So he fled. And he still has the bullet in his eye. He can't see?
He can't see.
Oh my God, what happened to him?
Sound bomb.
A sound bomb?
That's a literal translation in Arabic for what in English are called flashbang grenades.
You have people wounded every day and you don't know how to deal with them. You don't know where to take them. Doctors are getting beaten, tortured inside the hospital. Nurses getting arrested and beaten inside the hospital. It's really a humanitarian crisis we are going through now.
Even ambulance drivers say they've become targets. This man says police opened fire on his vehicle and then beat him up, breaking his leg. Bahrain's government gave us a packet of documents telling its side of the story, blaming Iran for instigating demonstrations and unrest. In one paragraph, they accuse activists of doctoring photos, fabricating injuries, and Bahrain's foreign minister says security forces are not firing on unarmed civilians.
The police would not walk into a neighborhood and start shooting people. The police would be at a checkpoint or at a post.
So they're not shooting into the neighborhoods right now?
No.
Bahraini officials also say that the overall situation in the country is calming down. But we saw people hiding in their homes.
This whole place has been tear gassed.
We heard gunshots in broad daylight. It seems security forces have contained the opposition in the villages, making it invisible to the rest of the world.
And Amber joins us now to chat a little bit more and answer some of your questions. A powerful piece there. That tear gas is no fun, is it?
Thank you. No, it is not. I was surprised at how much I felt it in my lungs. It was hard to breathe. You normally think of tear gas as just affecting your eyes, and to me that really gave me the perspective of how these people are living in these villages, because they're constantly getting hit with tear gas. And it's hard for them to walk outside their homes and breathe the air. It's
present, isn't it? Yeah, yes. in the air. No, it's nasty stuff, that's for sure. Now, before we get to the viewers' questions, such a massive reaction to your story yesterday and your appearance having a chat with us on it. Were you surprised at the reaction from inside and outside Bahrain?
I was surprised. I didn't know that many people would look at the story so positively or really thank CNN for it. I think they created a thank you Amber Lyon CNN Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I got tons of tweets, and the response has really been phenomenal.
So there's obviously a lot of concern out there about what is continuing to go on in Bahrain, and I cannot possibly ask you all the questions we've been given, because there's like 2 pages of tweets and Facebook comments. But I want to run through some of them though. Heba Hassan is in Bahrain, or from Bahrain, and asked this: what was the most painful scene or story you witnessed while you were there?
It was definitely that man who you saw in the story, who had more than 40 birdshot pellets in his body, and seeing how he was trying to self-medicate, trying to treat himself because he was too scared to go to the hospital. And I just being a U.S. citizen living here in the States, I couldn't imagine having such a fear of going to seek medical help, much less having to treat your own gunshot wounds.
And just to recap, they don't go to the hospital. Why?
Because they're terrified, because the military has taken over the main hospital, and human rights activists have documented cases of the military using the hospital to identify, torture, and arrest protesters. And that man who had all the pellets in his body says that he wasn't protesting. He was just walking out his front door, and that's when he was hit by all the stray birdshot.
And talking about the allegations by human rights activists about people being taken out of the hospital, injured people, it was interesting today, the White House putting out a statement calling outrageous the Syrian authorities not letting medical help get to protesters. And a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter, I couldn't even name them because there's just so many of them, were asking the same thing about why are we not hearing that sort of outrage from the US? Have you had any reaction from US officials, State Department or otherwise?
No, not yet. And we've noticed that that's something we're going to continue to look at. We've got a documentary on this whole situation coming out at the end of May. But so far, the White House has remained largely silent about what's going on in Bahrain, and they've received a lot of criticism for that. When we were talking to people on the ground, they said, why isn't the U.S. doing something? You have so many interests here with the 5th Fleet Naval Base, such a presence in this country, yet the government has yet to denounce the obvious human rights abuses going on there right now. And I think this just continues down the line of the criticism the U.S. has been getting about just not being on a level perspective with what's going on in this area.
Criticisms of hypocrisy in the foreign policy in that part of the world. And because a lot of people are saying that the US isn't being loud about this because of the interest it has there and wanting to maintain that status quo. Now, Lali Galang is a regular on Facebook. She said, considering what you and the team went through in Bahrain, and given the chance, would you consider going back to do a follow-up piece? I think I know the answer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We're too similar in that, even having the security forces pointing machine guns at us for half an hour, although it was terrifying at the time, it's never going to stop me or my team from telling the story. And we've become very passionate about what's going on in Bahrain now. And we met some amazing people on all sides of the issue in the country.
Yeah. Abbas Ali said, what do you think about this arresting of doctors and harassment of doctors treating injured people? Did you come across a lot of anger there? Obviously, it's a pretty unusual situation.
Yeah, we came across a lot of anger, and we also came across a lot of very heroic doctors who are risking their lives to travel to treat these patients. Even the doctors who took us to see these patients could have been arrested for doing that. And right now, the situation with the hospitals has not only people scared to go in the hospitals to get treated, but also doctors scared to go in every day and perform their jobs.
when it comes to those who are doing the protesters themselves, Zahra Hamada and others have also asked about those protesters. Puts it this way, actually, did you deal directly with them? Is it true that they were only terrorists, as some suggested that they were troublemakers and all of the rest of that?
From what we saw when we were able to enter the villages, the boys you saw chanting at the beginning of the story were unarmed and were chanting, "God is great," and they weren't, it didn't seem to be violent at all, yet security forces continued to hit them with tear gas just for standing in the street and chanting. So we didn't see any violence from what we were able to witness, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't going on. We just didn't witness that.
Now from Twitter, Yas Bahrain said you ignored all of the Bahraini Sunnis who are not a minority. Well, they are actually literally a minority, but you should have visited our villages and tried to take our point of views. So the Sunnis obviously supporting the monarchy and wanting to keep things the way they are. Well, how do you answer that criticism?
Well, with our pieces you've been seeing so far, we're covering the humanitarian issue that's going on in the country, and not in a sectarian way. We're just looking at people who are suffering, whether they are Sunni or Shia. But for our documentary that we have coming out in a couple months, where we focus on social media's influence in the area, we do talk to both sides of the issue very heavily and in a lot of detail. And it's interesting to hear how each side views the protests that are going on. We talked to some Sunni bloggers who consider the protesters to be Oscar award winners. They consider acting in the photos and videos you see online, and you talk to the other side and they feel very oppressed right now. Right.
Okay, now another tweet here. This is Dabazdi saying, basically, I'll paraphrase it, you were at that dinner when you were taken out after you'd been detained and interrogated and all of that. You were taken out to a nice dinner, and Dabazdi is saying dinner was to soften you, not to say sorry. Did you ask at that time, and did you ask officials later why this happened?
We did ask them, why were we arrested? Why were we detained for so long? We showed you our U.S. passports. We showed you our CNN IDs. This is a U.S. ally country. And we were given no answers. And to this day, Michael, they still have not told us why they detained us. I believe is because they did not want us in those villages seeing the accurate picture of what's going on in Bahrain right now.
Yeah. And Abu Muhammad, too, another one about the protesters. He asked several questions, but it touches on something you were saying before. Did you ever see any of these protesters armed?
No, we didn't. We didn't see anyone who was armed. But once again, we were very limited in the amount of time we were able to spend in the villages because we kind of had to sneak into them to get footage. There's military checkpoints on the outside, military checkpoints all over the roads, and right now the media is being controlled.
Right. Yes, that was another question that actually came up. How is the local media covering it?
The local media is, most of it is state-run,
right.
So it's definitely a different perspective, and they're definitely not showing what we showed in our piece. Right,
okay, and there was another one I wanted to ask you here. Oh, yes, this is from Dani, thanking you for the story, and then raising the question, we touched on this yesterday, that the Saudis are there as part of the Gulf force that's inside Bahrain, and asking whether you heard a lot of anger about the Saudis being present, other countries being present in Bahrain.
Most of the anger, I think, because I am a U.S. citizen, we heard was directed at the U.S. and why isn't the U.S. speaking up? They're speaking up about all these other countries, but they're not saying anything about how we're being oppressed. We didn't hear much about criticism towards Saudi Arabia, although a lot of people now are saying that Saudi troops are in Bahrain, and we saw an intense military presence on the streets there, but the tanks were unmarked, and even the security forces who arrested us never gave us any type of identification, so we didn't know where they were from.